Happy New Year.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, come on.
Happy
up.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Where the chief at? Yeah, look at the chief. Where chief at? Where she at?
Stand on my tippy toes.
She good. Oh, she good. She up there. She good.
All right, all right, all right.
All right, everybody here. Hello, hello. How's everybody feeling? All right, good, good, good. Well, thank you. We invited you all here today just as we close out a meeting that we just held for the first meeting for the Public Safety Task Force. During the campaign trail, as I ran for mayor, we talked a lot about having a pandemic-like response. And what we meant when we said that was that we needed to galvanize all of the players into one conversation where we can focus strategically on how we're going to reduce crime and violence in our community. Today is the first step to doing that. We have representatives from state government, city government, county government. The federal government was also represented. They had to leave a little bit earlier. But this is not the last time that you'll see us together. We are on a mission to support our city. We are on a mission to support the citizens of this community. We hear our citizens loud and clear. They want to see action. They want to see us strategizing and figuring out how we're going to reduce the chaos, the hurt, and the pain that we see in our community. Today is the first step to doing that. During our meeting, we had different individuals talk about some of the initiatives that they have underway and how we can align with those initiatives. I'll just call out a few of them just so you can get a flavor for some of the things that were talked about. Chief Davis from MPD talked about the Repeat Offender Task Force and how we want to intensify our focus on the 20% of individuals that are creating 80% of the crime in our city, and using a dashboard to track and make sure that we are focused on those folks, as well as using data-driven enforcement for hotspots throughout our city. DA Mulroy talked about fast-tracking violent crimes and making sure that those creating the most violent crimes in our community are brought to justice as quickly as possible. Our juvenile court judge talked about a new partnership process where they're working with local organizations to make sure that referrals are made to support the young people, and not just the young people, but also the families, and how they're building capacity through support from Shelby County Commission and the Shelby County Mayor's Office to have youth development specialists that are going to be working with families throughout our city. Our federal district attorney, Kevin Ritz, he talked about a violent crime initiative where they brought in additional U.S. district attorneys to help prosecute those that are doing organized crime in our communities and using federal statutes to make sure that we're bringing them to justice. Senator Agberry talked about establishing a state office of gun violence prevention to help marshal resources across this state. And there was a follow-up that we're also looking at doing something very similar here locally in the city of Memphis. Representative Gillespie, he talked about a car seizure and drag racing legislation where if you are drag racing throughout this community and making it unsafe to traverse our streets, we're going to be able to take that vehicle from you. We are going to have no tolerance for the chaos that we have seen on our streets. And then lastly, amongst other things, Senator Brent Taylor talked about the creation of a new legislation that will create a felony possession for stolen firearms. So if you are stealing firearms out of cars, it will be a felony regardless of the value of that gun. These are just a few of the items that have been discussed, but I want to reiterate to this community that what you see right now in front of you is what you're going to continue to see. It's a unified front to address the situations that we see in our community. We're going to allow individuals, because there's so many of us, and I know that everybody has a lot to say, we're going to allow the media to ask questions individually. So we're just going to kind of break off to the sides. And so if you have specific questions for me, I'll take a couple right now, but then you'll have the whole team of folks that'll be here to answer any other questions that you have. Anybody have any questions?
Mayor Young?
Yes.
We learned recently that the previous administration is not enforcing police reform ordinance
Right.
passed by the council. What are your plans to do with regard to those ordinances?
Yeah, so we will enforce the ordinances as approved by the Shelby City, sorry, not Shelby County. We will enforce the ordinances as approved by the City Council.
What can you say about young people being killed by guns? We've seen that so much, just randomly, right, around the holiday. What can be done to address something like that?
You know, I think it's really getting the most violent individuals off the streets. It's a small subset of our population that's creating all of the crime in our community. A small subset of our population has given Memphis the brand that we've seen over the past couple of years, and we have to get them off the streets. And that is our goal. You'll hear more about legislation that's intended to get guns out of the hands of those that don't need to have them. But at the end of the day, we have to get those individuals off the streets that are terrorizing our communities.
Mayor Young, we've seen task force and things like before, and sometimes they come together and they lose steam as
Yeah.
they move forward. What can you do to guarantee that this type of effort will indeed continue? And what are some specific goals that you're putting in place to be like, we want to be here by maybe mid-year and so on?
Yeah, we hadn't gotten to the point of identifying like specific metrics in terms of what level we want to reduce, but in terms of keeping it going, it's going to come down to organization and will. We want to organize this group and be very specific about timelines and when we want to convene, but we also want to make sure that we keep the urgency high. People have heard me use that word often, but I feel like we're at a point right now where we're in a tipping point for our community. We're either going to elevate or we're not. And my firm belief is that we will elevate, and the way we will do it is by being unified. We started our meeting, and one of the comments that I said is there are going to continue to be things that we disagree on. There's no question about that. But we agree on many more things. And so we're going to stand together on the things that we agree upon. We're going to support each other to get those things done for the benefit of the people in this city.
Mayor Young, we heard kind of what all of the other players kind of brought to the table, but what are the things city side that you're really focused on right now, and especially after this meeting?
Yeah, well, I think you heard some of the things that I referenced that Chief Davis talked about. And from a city perspective, we're certainly looking to get that public safety advisor on board. We're looking to form an office of violence prevention. We want to support MPD and the various initiatives that they're going to implement to get those repeat offenders off the streets. And there'll be more things to come.
We're coming
All right.
up on the anniversary of the Tyree Nichols case.
Yeah.
What can you say about what has been learned from that? I would love to hear from the police chief and the DA about what you learned from that.
All right, I'll let them answer that, and then we'll close out after that question.
Well, I'll be brief, but this is a very somber time for not just, the Memphis Police Department and our community, but also the family of Tyree Nichols. I think we've learned a lot about our department, about the various challenges that we face as a department, the organization itself that needed the level of supervision and attention that we're providing for it, the level of community engagement and understanding what our role is, not just me as a chief, but also every police officer in the police department, understanding that we're here to serve our community and not to be a burden on our community and not to terrorize our community as well. So there have been a lot of lessons learned, I think, for everybody. There's been a lot of lessons learned as far as how do we move forward, as a department, and still know that our community needs good police officers on the street, and the ones that are doing the work every day, that continue to do good work every day, we've got to continue to support them, but also ensure that we're holding them accountable to do the right thing all the time.
I mean, obviously, it's a tragedy. As we come upon the anniversary, our thoughts are going to be somber, and our hearts are going to go out to the family of Tyree Nichols, and, you know, and the family of all the other murder victims as well. You know, I think there is some solace to be taken from the fact that our response to the tragedy was swift and thorough and transparent, and we were able to swiftly and thoroughly come up with charges against the persons responsible, and announce those charges before the release of the video, which I think prevented Memphis from having a violent response and other cities around the country from having a violent response. And that transparency, I think, was a good thing. If there's any silver lining to come from this very bleak tragedy, it's that it, you know, focuses attention on the need for reform, including police reform. And I think I agree with what Chief Davis said. The vast majority, I think we need to be able to hold in our mind two different concepts at the same time. One is that the vast majority of police officers are people of good faith who are doing a dangerous job under difficult conditions, and we need to support them. But at the same time, there are issues of culture and systemic problems that need to be addressed. And I know that our attention most recently has been focused on the ordinary crime problem, but the need for reform still is out there. And it's a problem that we still need to be working on. And I assume and I hope that the city will be working in good faith and cooperation with the Department of Justice as they engage in their pattern and practice investigation, and we can find ways to, engage in systemic reform to try to reduce the likelihood that these kinds of tragedies will recur.
All right. So we're going to close it off there, and if there are additional questions, please catch any of us along the sides. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you.